Welcome back to Scissors and Scrubs. Things are already getting heated here because this topic is heated.
Yep.
The last time we got any kind of hate mail was when we talked about the Karen retrial.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And this time we're going to talk about the Lindsay Clancy trial.
I'm going to keep my opinions to myself then, so
I
we don't
don't
get
think we're
hate
going to be
mail.
able to. I'm Nicole.
I'm Laura.
And we are talking about postpartum depression versus psychosis.
Mm-hmm.
And we're bringing up some doozies of stories because this has happened before.
Mm-hmm.
And Laura and I are already going back and forth. We have some different opinions on this. We have similar but different, if that makes sense.
I don't believe anybody.
I know you don't. You're very cynical.
I don't trust a word anybody says.
But I have a big problem with mental health.
I do too.
And it's like if I had a cancer diagnosis, I'd be referred to my oncologist, I'd get treatment, blah, 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 done. You get a mental health diagnosis, you jock it around and jock it around and jock it around. And because I can't see your illness, well, they're not really sick or they're faking it. So I have issues with mental illness as it is because I feel like it's so neglected. And that's the crux of a lot of problems in this country.
I 100% agree.
So
on that.
What we're going to discuss today is postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. Now, after my firstborn, I had the baby blues, which is a very mild form, and it was awful for me. So I can't fathom somebody in full-blown postpartum depression.
Right.
I sat in my living room telling me having a child was the biggest mistake of my life and bawled my eyes out. And on the inside, saying to myself, this is my hormones, this is postpartum depression, and still not being able to control it.
Yeah.
And my husband freaking out and calling my mother thinking I was going to kill the kids. Okay? So this is a personal subject because, like I said, it was just a touch for me and it was bad.
Yeah.
So these people, I can't imagine. So we're going to discuss what postpartum depression is and what postpartum psychosis is. And we're going to follow it up with two ladies.
Yes.
Okay, Laura, take it away.
Well, I got this from scienceinsights.org.
Oh, well, it's facts.
It is facts. So both postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis are psychiatric conditions that develop after childbirth, but they differ extremely sharply in severity, symptoms, and the urgency of the crisis. Postpartum depression, it's pretty common. It affects roughly 10 to 20% of new mothers. And it involves persistent sadness, anxiety, and difficulty functioning.
Yeah.
Postpartum psychosis is extremely rare. It occurs in about 1 to 2 out of every 1,000 births. And it involves a break from reality that requires emergency treatment. So they both happen after birth, but then they're extremely different after that. And like you said, like you had the baby blues. Most new mothers experience some emotional upset or turbulence after delivery. You have all these hormones going everywhere.
Your life has changed, especially your firstborn. Your life is completely different than anything you've known. And it's hard. And I had a colicky baby. That didn't help.
Yeah. The baby blues, quote unquote, they usually start 2 to 3 days, within 2 to 3 days of giving birth. They involve mood swings, crying spells, anxiety, and trouble sleeping. These symptoms usually resolve within 2 weeks on their own.
Yeah.
Like you don't usually have to treat it. It's usually fine.
I might still have him. He's 22.
Postpartum depression looks similar at first, but doesn't go away. So the baby blues go away on their own.
Yeah.
The symptoms are more intense than the baby blues, and they last well beyond the 2-week window, and they can persist for months or longer without any treatment. Postpartum psychosis is completely different. It involves losing contact with reality, and it typically strikes suddenly and often within the first 2 weeks after giving birth.
Woo.
About 65% of psychotic episodes begin within the first 3 days postpartum.
Oof.
So how does the depression and the psychosis differ? Postpartum depression is very similar to major depressive disorder. Like that anybody can get at any time in their lives. You feel overwhelming sadness, hopelessness, numbness. You have a difficult time bonding with your baby. You withdraw from family. You have changes in appetite and sleep. You have trouble concentrating, and you have persistent feelings of guilt or inadequacy. Some women in with postpartum depression have frightening, intrusive thoughts about harm coming to the baby, but they're disturbed by those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have these thoughts,
know
like the
it's not
baby's
right.
going to get hurt or the baby's going to die. And they're like, oh my God, why am I thinking that? Like
Right.
they know it's a wrong thought. Postpartum psychosis is dramatically different. It is characterized by extreme confusion, hallucinations, where you see or hear things that aren't there, delusions, which are like fixed false beliefs, often involving the baby, paranoia, and disorganized thinking and behavior. Women can swing rapidly between mania and depression with psychosis, and sometimes like within the same day. You can be manic and then all of a sudden you're laying on the couch depressed. A distinctive feature of postpartum psychosis is a delirium-like quality, which means your consciousness can wax and wane, and the person can seem lucid one moment and deeply confused the next. And there's like a depersonalization thing that happens where they feel like everything is unreal or dreamlike, and that's very common in psychosis. Early warning signs of psychosis include severe insomnia that goes beyond typical new parent. You know, you're not sleeping at night. Yep. This is like you can't, and you're not sleeping at all. Escalating irritability, anxiety that feels very different than normal worrying. Like you worry that your baby's going to stop breathing at night, but this is like extreme anxiety about it. And rapid mood fluctuations. And these can progress quickly to full psychotic symptoms. Postpartum depression can develop at any time in the first year after birth, though it most often comes to fruition the first weeks to months after birth. And it tends to build gradually. And it's sometimes like, oh, I have the baby blues. And then you're like, oh, I haven't gotten rid of the baby blues. And then you realize, oh, this isn't the baby blues because I'm still feeling this way 2 months later. Postpartum psychosis, the onset is typically sudden and very early. There's a Dutch study that found that the median onset of psychiatric symptoms is just 8 days after delivery. That is the median.
Yeah.
The most classic presentation appears within the first 15 days. The rapid dramatic onset is one of the clearest differences between the two conditions because the postpartum depression is kind of just like a gradual thing where you're getting, it just feels like longer and longer and you're getting worse and worse. And the psychosis is like almost immediately after birth and it's
bad
all of a sudden there. After delivery, after you have a baby, your levels of estrogen and progesterone drop like so immediately and sharply. It's insane. The estrogen has a protective effect on the key brain signaling systems, including those involving serotonin and dopamine. So the sudden withdrawal leaves you neurologically vulnerable. And the prolactin rises with breastfeeding and cortisol levels shift as well. So these hormone like shifting and everything like really have an effect on a new mother. And so that's why you get these depression and psychosis. All of your hormones are going insane.
Crazy.
Which we all know that.
Women have really had the short end of the stick with the hormones.
For postpartum depression, there's risk factors involved. It includes a personal or family history of depression, any depression, lack of social support, if you're all alone and your husband's working 2 shifts and you have nobody to help you, stressful life events, and complications during pregnancy or delivery. So if you had a bad delivery, it can trigger a depression. Women who have had postpartum depression have a 25% chance of it returning with any future pregnancy. And over 70% of women with any history of mood disorders will experience at least one mood episode related to pregnancy or childbirth. So if you had depression in the past,
it'll come out.
You have a very high 70% chance that you're going to get postpartum depression. Postpartum psychosis also has a biological foundation. It is particularly linked to bipolar disorder. Women with bipolar disorder face an estimated 17% risk of developing postpartum psychosis. And when you think about it, it only happens in 1 out of 1,000 births. That's 17% is a big number of it. And that is way higher than anybody that doesn't have bipolar disorder. Women who have already had one psychotic postpartum episode have a recurrence risk of about 29%.
Yeah.
So if you've had it before, you have a very high risk of having it again. Also, if you had a sibling or a mother who experienced postpartum psychosis or bipolar disorder, it raises a woman's risk 14-fold to have postpartum psychosis. There's research ongoing now that into the dopamine receptor sensitivity in the brain that possibly triggers the psychosis. But it's still in studies. Women who experience a first episode of postpartum psychosis have a 50% chance of eventually being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So it has a very strong link to bipolar disorder.
Yep.
And you can have this episode and then you get diagnosed. The connection is strong enough that many researchers now consider postpartum psychosis a manifestation of bipolar illness rather than like a separate condition. Then this gets into like why psychosis is an emergency. So postpartum depression is obviously serious. You need treatment. You should get treatment. You should get help, but it doesn't usually require a hospitalization. You can usually, get on a med, talk to somebody, develop strategies, and you can, get your way through postpartum depression. You can usually live at home, begin your treatment. You can care for your baby with the correct support. Postpartum psychosis is extremely different in its urgency. It is considered a true psychiatric emergency that requires immediate hospitalization.
Because they're going to hurt somebody.
Yeah. Because they're experiencing delusions, hallucinations, and disordered thinking and cannot reliably keep themselves and the baby safe. Rates of suicide and infanticide are elevated, obviously, during psychotic episodes. And research on the cases that ended in infanticide has found repeated missed opportunities for early intervention, underscoring how critical, you need to rapidly treat these women. If someone in the early postpartum period becomes confused, stops sleeping, entirely, is not sleeping at all, expresses weird beliefs all of a sudden, and seems to be responding to people that you're not seeing or hearing, this is a sign of an emergency situation, and that psychiatric evaluation needs to be made now. It's always better to err on the side of caution. If you're I don't know, I don't want to screw up their lives. I don't want to, put them in a hospital, but you're worried about it. It's better to err on the side of caution. Let them go get checked out and then be no, they're okay. They were thinking this or they just have depression or whatever. Because you need to, and then they said people don't want to ask the mothers this. You need to say, are you going to harm your children?
Right.
Are you going to harm yourself? You have to ask it straight out because they won't just say it straight out. And if she says I've had thoughts of the baby being harmed, but I'm horrified by that, that's depression. If she's had thoughts of it and she's yeah, I don't know, they shouldn't live, then that's psychosis.
Right.
So it's just how, or if they're yeah, I don't know, this thing in my head just keeps telling me to do it. That's psychosis. Right. Depression is I keep thinking the baby's going to end up, dead at the bottom of the stairs, but I'm dying. It's
awful. I
don't think that's normal. They know what's wrong if it's in depression. Postpartum depression is typically treated with therapy, antidepressants, and or both. And many women respond well to the same approaches that you used for regular depression during anybody's life. Support groups, structured sleep, and practical help with infant care all help in a quicker recovery of the depression. And most women improve significantly within weeks to months of treatment for postpartum depression. Postpartum psychosis requires way more intensive approach. The treatment in the acute phase usually combines antipsychotic medication with a mood stabilizer, most commonly lithium. And lithium has the strongest evidence for treating both the acute episode and preventing any relapse from happening. They can also do ECT.
Yeah,
ECT. therapy, which is like shocks to the brain, and that can produce a very fast response and help them get better quicker. And once the acute crisis resolves, mood stabilizer treatments help prevent recurrence. And education about the condition for the mother and her family is a huge part of care for these patients. And then therapeutic approaches used for bipolar disorder are often applied during recovery. Like they're out of the psychotic phase and then they're going to treat them like it's a bipolar patient. The prognosis for postpartum psychosis is actually very favorable when it's caught and treated early. Most women recover completely fully from an acute episode. The longer term consideration is monitoring for bipolar disorder, given that there's like a 50% overlap, and planning carefully with the psychiatrist before any future pregnancies. So the quick comparison for that, postpartum depression affects 10 to 20% of mothers. Postpartum psychosis affects 1 to 2 per 1,000 births. The onset depression builds gradually. Psychosis strikes suddenly, often within the first 2 weeks postpartum. The core symptoms, depression involves persistent sadness, withdrawal, and difficulty functioning, and psychosis involves hallucinations, delusions, confusion, and loss of contact with reality. The risk factors for them, depression is linked to personal history, depression, and life stresses. Psychosis is strongly linked to bipolar disorder and prior psychotic episodes. Depression is usually managed outpatient. Psychosis requires inpatient hospitalization, and depression recurs in about 25% of pregnancies after the first one, and psychosis recurs in about 29%. So they have almost the same recurrence rate, but they're very, very different things.
Well. Well, Laura, I spent my night last night. Me and Andrea Yates were hanging out together.
I feel very bad for Andrea Yates.
My heart broke. I actually was praying for her today.
Yeah.
Andrea Yates sticks in my head because it's the stories of my lifetime that have haunted me, and she is one of them. I watched The Cult Behind the Killer. So I learned stuff about Andrea Yates that I had never heard of before. For those of you who do not know, Andrea Yates, back in the day, I think it was 1999 she did it, 2000. Yeah. She drowned 5 of her children in the bathtub. And it was a big to-do.
Yes.
So what I did not know at the time is that there is a religious component, a heavy religious component to this whole thing. All right. I don't know who I hate more in this episode, her husband or the preacher. Okay. Rusty meets Andrea.
Rusty's the husband.
Rusty's the husband. She meets Rusty somewhere around like 1992. They get married. He is already involved with this preacher, Michael Wernicke. This guy is a cult leader, but he's not your typical, I have a compound, I'm Jesus Christ, I sleep with all the women kind of cult leader. He is like, he bounces around college campuses. So in this documentary, they're speaking to him. They're speaking to a man who was also involved in the cult that met him on a campus. And they're speaking to a kid. He's now a man, but he was raised under a woman who was under this guy's influence. And let me tell you, he was the cutest fucking kid I've ever seen in my life. When you look at the pictures of him as a baby, I want to reach in the camera and pick him up. And he was adorable. He's probably in his 30s now. He might have been the cutest kid God has ever created. All right. So Rusty meets her and they decide, they're going to have as many kids as God grants them. Yeah. Laura, this is what they're doing. Okay. So immediately she has a child. In 7 years, she has 5 children. Okay. So Rusty, the husband, introduces Andrea to this Michael Wernicke. Michael Wernicke is a doomsdayer. Everybody, he's on the streets. Everybody's going to hell. Everybody's going to hell.
Is he the guy in Boston with the sign?
Pretty close. Okay. You're all going to hell.
Yeah.
And your job, if you're focusing on your job, you're going to hell because Satan's involved. If you want to be successful, that's Satan's thoughts. Everything's down, demons, Satan, hell. He wears Satan masks. And he's everything's through correspondence. He sends you letters. He sends you tapes. He sends you videotapes. It's the 90s.
Right. There was no like thing
right.
we
So
could
you're
send.
constantly listening to him and reading him. Okay. So they have 3 children. Everything's fine. They have a 4th kid. Things start looking bad after the 4th kid. She has a 4th kid. She starts getting kind of weird. She's depressed. In 1999, after the 4th kid, she has a nervous breakdown. All right. But they decide, of course, they're homeschooling. The Christian cults.
That right there would put me into a
they love to
episode.
They all love to homeschool. So she's got all these kids, and he thought it was a good idea. We're going to live on a bus. Okay, so they're homeschooling on a bus.
It was like a school bus they converted, right?
It was like a Greyhound bus.
Okay.
And he bought it.
Long.
He bought it from this Michael Warnicki because he was getting a new bus, and they would travel to wherever he's preaching with this bus, and she's homeschooling the kids. So they're on the bus. She has the 4th kid. She starts getting bad. She's so bad, she's catatonic, like staring at the wall all day. She's in this catatonic state. They're moving in with his mother. She, at one point, is in the bathroom, and she's got a knife to her throat. And he's like, oh, this isn't bad. So he stops her from the knife in the throat, takes her to a facility to get help. She's hospitalized. She's diagnosed with postpartum depression. The husband's told how serious her condition is. It's clearly postpartum psychosis, but they're calling it depression. He's told this is a very serious thing. This could become psychosis. He's like, okay, whatever that means. And she's put on psych meds. He's told no more kids. There's a 50-50 chance she'll come back and it'll be worse. She'll relapse. He's like, okay. But on screen, he's like, well, we're thinking like what it could be the flu. Like she'll get like the flu. And if she harms herself, it's only herself she's going to harm. So like what harm would that be? Like you want to strangle him.
Yeah.
Okay. So they are giving her meds. She's starting to come out of the catatonia. She's starting to come back to the world. She's engaging again. She's talking to people. She's coming back. And she's doing better. So she's like, by the end of 1999, she's like, I don't want to take my medication anymore. She stops her medication.
A lot of psych patients.
As a lot of every psych patient wants to do because they don't like how they feel on them. And he's like, well, God did say we'll have as many as God will grant us. So against everything he was told, she gets her pregnant again. So now she's pregnant with her 5th child, little girl Mary.
Mary.
Okay. The 5th kid comes in November of 2000. Within no time, boop, back in the toilet. She plummets into catatonia depression, worse than before. The husband is looking for psychiatrists, but he can't get an appointment. Because, medical care for mental health is stellar.
Abysmal.
Stellar.
Yeah.
She's so bad, the husband and the brother have to carry her to the car to get her to a psych facility. And at this point, in between the 2 kids, he buys a house. And he's like, that'll make things better. Buy the house. So she has the baby. She's in this house. And she gets admitted into this facility. All she can keep saying is she's a bad mother. I'm a bad mother. I'm a bad mother. She's in the hospital for 2 weeks. And the hospital's like, you know what? We can't do anything for her. She'll do better at home. Send her home to the 5 kids. So they take her home. She's having visual and auditory hallucinations. I'm going to dive deeper into it later. Delusions that the devil was in her, but she doesn't tell anybody she's having auditory and visual hallucinations. So the husband's like, well, I never dreamed she was actually going to harm the kids. Like, I didn't think it was that bad. So he's like, oh, I never dreamed she'd be that bad. Okay. The day that this happens, she's standing in the kitchen and she's eating cereal out of the box staring at the wall. And he's like, I've never seen her do that. So what does he do? He goes to work. I looked at Brian. I'm like, if I was staring at the wall eating cereal out of a box, would you have left me alone with the kids? He's like, no, absolutely not. He goes to work. This starts with the 911 calls. The 911 call is her calling, and she says, I need a police officer. And they're like, okay, ma'am, can you tell us what's going on? She's like, I need a police officer. Are you home alone? No, my children are here. But there's a long pause. Are you home alone? Pause. Mm-hmm. My children are here. So do you need help with the children? I need a police officer. And then she called him. You need to come home. Mm-hmm. The police come in. She had drowned them all in the bathtub, and she had lined them all up on the bed. I think the oldest one, she had to chase him down to get him. Okay. So she gets arrested. They send her in to jail. Now we're talking the trial. Okay. So they're realizing that she was communicating with this Wernicke through all of this. Mm-hmm. And she is writing to him and his wife, telling them, I'm depressed. I'm having bad thoughts, blah, 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 blah. His belief is your children only have till 12 to be on the right track. So you have to beat them to get them where they need to be.
That's what I've done wrong in my life.
So when you're interviewing this precious little kid who is the cutest thing I've ever seen, he's like, my mother had these beliefs. She actually would let him beat us. And we weren't allowed to cry because it says in the Bible you shouldn't cry.
Where does it say that?
He quoted something I've never heard of. Okay?
But probably in some very different.
I'm listening to Father Mike. I haven't heard this quote yet. Okay. So you need to beat them and you need to educate them. So she's trying to homeschool. She's like, my child doesn't know the ABCs. My child doesn't know the ABCs. I'm a terrible mother. I'm a terrible mother. And he, instead of telling her, go get fucking help, he's like, well, you need to beat them more. You're a terrible mother. You should be doing better. You're not good mother. So she's ruminating on these thoughts. I'm a bad mother. I'm a bad mother. I'm a terrible mother. I should have done better. The husband's out doing whatever the fucking husband's doing. She would say she would sit in front of the cartoons and Satan was talking to her through the cartoons. And she only has till they're 12. So she believes that if she kills them during the age of innocence, they'll go straight to heaven. Mm-hmm. Because if she waits, they're going to hell because she's a bad mother and she can't get them to where they need to be. Mm-hmm. Okay. So she goes to trial number 1. She is charged with 5 counts of capital murder. And the trial is in February of 2002. Her defense attorney, he does a decent job. But they don't really bring this Wernicke into the trial on the first trial. And nobody's getting blamed but her, and she's taking a beating. I will say, as much as I fucking hate the husband, he does defend her. And he's like, she was sick. He's like, we were trying to get help. He knew something was wrong with her, but he really wasn't doing shit to fix it. He was leaving her home, homeschooling 5 kids, which 3 kids almost broke me. I can't imagine 5, all under the age of 7.
Homeschool them. And
you're homeschooling them. There's no break. And you look at her, she's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
Like, she's not bathed. Like, she's a mess, okay? So, excuse me, first trial, she's convicted of capital murder for these kids. Now, I'm trying to watch this, and my husband comes home, and he's talking to me, and I'm pausing. So now I missed who said this, but I don't know if it was a juror or somebody said in the first trial that there was a CSI episode where the mother, right, there was no such episode.
Right. There was never, they use it in, like someone testified, right. Like she watched CSI and she saw this episode and that's how she did these killings. But there was never this episode.
Never this episode, mistrial. Mm-hmm. She gets a new trial. So now they're bringing out, and when you listen to these other people talk about this guy, he was fucking nuts and he was brainwashing these people and she's already psychotic.
Right.
She is drinking this shit up. Mm-hmm. So the second trial, the defense attorney's like, no, we're bringing this in. There was a pamphlet. And he basically says, let me see if I can get this quote right. I might have written it down somewhere. The guy's teachings were the trellis that her IV psychosis grew upon. Mm-hmm. So they bring in this pamphlet, which it's like, you're a terrible mother if you can't do this. Your kids are going to hell. You're going to go to hell with them and blah, 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 blah. So he really brings all of this into this trial. God bless the poor thing. By the second trial, she's probably put on 80 pounds.
Yeah.
She never says shit. You barely hear a word out of her. When you see, and in the second trial, they bring in the interview she has with her psychiatrist immediately after. And he's like, why did you do it? And she's like, I was saving my children because they were going to hell. I am a terrible mother. I am a terrible person. And she's zero affect. She is blank as shit. So second trial, they're interviewing the foreman of the jury. And he's like, we had one holdout. And he's like, we knew. So initially, they only showed like a cartoon clip that had like a little jingle basically saying you're a bad mother and your kids are going to hell. He's like, but in the jury room, we were able to see the whole pamphlet that she had in her hands the day of the murder. He's like, and you could see, it was written out what to do. She read it and she killed her kids. Like you could see it. So this one woman's like, but you can't forget about the kids. We can't let these kids not get justice. So he's like, we took the 5 pictures of each kid. We prayed on each kid. You know, it's Texas. They're praying. Each kid. He's like, and then I wrote on the board, the state of Texas requires us to do justice to Andrea Yates. And he's like, and on the other side, I wrote, God will judge her for the rest. And he's like, and that flipped the juror. So the second trial, she's convicted for legally insane, and she's committed to an asylum. She is still, for whatever facility, for lack of a better word, she is still there. She has been offered to get out. She refuses because obviously psychosis is cleared up. Everything's cleared up. Her private hell is dealing with. She killed her 5 children. So I don't think the husband's right in the head. And in this, they're presenting him the information that this guy was a cult leader. I think he still contacts this guy.
Yeah, probably.
Because he is not, he's like, well, I guess I could see how you could think he's a cult leader. I could see that. But the way he words everything is he doesn't want to be linked to having anything to do or ignoring what happened to her or whatever. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He has since remarried. He has had another child. The little precious boy who is now a man, he wanted to meet him because he's like, I was actually jealous of those kids because they got to heaven and I was going to have to wait because they were so brainwashed by this guy. The preacher got zero. Nothing has happened to him. He's probably still out there fucking preaching. So that is female number 1.
Yeah.
That is going to bring us to actual Lindsay Clancy. My information is coming off the internet. Yeah. All right. And it's court documents that they're filing in the suit to the doctors. This is where I'm getting my timeline. I'm all over the place with her because I feel like mental illness always is told you're faking. And people who are mentally ill manipulate and lie. So you could see why people think they're faking all the time. So it's very difficult to tell who is telling the truth versus who is manipulating the system. I have a girlfriend whose brother is mentally ill, and I am actively watching the system fail him. But I am also watching him pull his shit together every time he has an interview. Right. And making it look like he's fine when he's insane. Right. All right. So I'm going to present my facts, and we will discuss. Okay? Lindsay Clancy. She meets Patrick in 2013. They get married in 2016. She is an L&D nurse, and he works in telecommunications. They have their first child, Cora, 2017. Dawson is born in 2019. In May of 2022, Kaylin is born. By end of summer in 2022, her mental health has started to decline. Okay. She has anxiety, obsessive thoughts, depression, insomnia. She's talking to therapists, different doctors. Okay. I'm going to mention it again later, but she started with postpartum depression up to kid number 2. After kid number 3, it's worse. So, what did she do? January 1st, 2023, she had entered McLean's hospital. She is released a couple of days later. And on January 24th, 2023, she has a telehealth with her psychiatrist. At 3 p.m. that day, she runs errands. She comes home at 5:30 to 5:35. She sends her husband on errands. He's to go to CVS to pick up some Pedialyte for her kid. And then he goes pick up takeout. CVS is 5 minutes away. The takeout is maybe like 15 minutes away. All right. My notes. Where am I? How did I not write this? Okay. At some point at CVS, he calls her. She doesn't answer, but she calls him right back. He returns home at 6:05, between 6:05 and 6:10. Calls out, no answer. He goes to the main bedroom. It's locked. He opens it. He sees the window open. He sees blood in the room. He looks out the window. She is on the ground under the window, face up. He runs outside. He calls 911. When you hear the 911 call, you can hear him moaning and groaning outside. When 911 arrives, he at some point apparently asked her where the kids. She gets out. They're in the basement. He runs inside. The kids are in the basement with exercise bands wrapped around their necks. She is now charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, and she's pleading not guilty due to insanity. Okay. Timeline. Mm-hmm. After the first child, she has mild postpartum symptoms, but they're resolved. She has postpartum after the second child. She's describing having like manic behavior after the second child. Racing thoughts, feels the need to always be active. After 2 months postpartum, she's having anxiety. She's offered Zoloft, but she declines. She's breastfeeding. She doesn't want to be on Zoloft. Okay. Third pregnancy. The postpartum is significantly worse. She is hypermanic. She, within a week after having the baby, she's on an extensive program to work out. She's got to work out. She's like, I constantly doing. She's on the Peloton. She's running. It's a week out. Like now, a week out, I could barely get off the couch. This fucking girl is going crazy. 5 weeks postpartum, she's running a 5K. Her sister's like, this is not her. She's buying into the body for life shit. She's like losing her mind. 12-week postpartum flips. She goes from this mania into full-blown depression. She has insomnia. She's maybe sleeping 3 hours a night. She's exhausted. She's seeking out help. So in September 12th of 2022, she gets an online appointment with the Dr. Tufts. Her first appointment, she's given a 23 in the postpartum scale, which means severe depression. She's described Zoloft again, but she doesn't want to take the Zoloft because of the babies. So she waits about 2 weeks, and she gets on the Zoloft. It's increased immediately, and now she starts having worse insomnia. She has racing thoughts. She feels like shit. It's thought that the extreme change in sleep is a warning sign of the medication-induced activation consistent with bipolar. Like giving her these medications, if she reacts with insomnia, it's bipolar. So she goes back to Dr. Tufts, who takes her off the Zoloft. Now she is giving her Ativan and Benadryl to sleep. It doesn't work. The insomnia gets so bad, she now goes 48 hours not sleeping. She goes to the ER. She's given triazidone. The mother-in-law at this point is seeking help at the South Shore Prenatal Behavioral Health Center, and she meets with Nurse Paul, who on November 1st of 2022 prescribes Prozac. This makes the insomnia even worse. So off the Prozac she goes. This is another red flag that didn't work, that she's bipolar. Like, so she clearly has an underlying bipolar diagnosis that nobody's looking at. Okay, so now on November 25th of 2022, she's got Ambien, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Remian, and Klonopin. So on 11/26, after taking the Remian, she's starting to get disassociation, distant. She's not in reality. She's feeling out of herself. She's unable to drive. She can't be alone. November 29th, she's now speaking to a nurse, Jalota. She's the first to enter diagnosis of bipolar, and she prescribes Seroquel. This makes everything worse. Mm-hmm. Now she has suicidal thoughts, intrusive thoughts, auditory hallucinations. She's telling her husband and her family that she's having all of these thoughts. She doesn't feel right. Things are going bad. She becomes like a zombie on the Zoloft. She loses 15 pounds. By December 2nd of 2022, she calls the New Bedford Suicide Hotline. They're like, yeah, well, you don't have a plan, so this isn't really an emergency. December 5th, she meets virtual with an Aspire healthcare clinician looking for help. They again tell her, well, you don't have a solid plan, so there's really nothing we can do about it. You're not here for admission. So December 6th of 2022, Patrick tells the nurse, Gelada, whatever the hell her name is, that Lindsay's worse, 10 times worse, since she's been on the Seroquel, and he wants to take her off it. She increases the Seroquel, and the depression gets worse. So on the 15th of December, Patrick calls nurse and says that she's had a devastating week. She's having horrible thoughts all day, intrusive thoughts all day, hallucinations all day, every day. She's not interested in anything. She's debilitated. She's saying to people, I'm never going to be the same again. I'm damaged, and the only option is for me to die. She tells Patrick, I'm having thoughts of harming the kids. 12:20, she goes to the MGH ER, Mass General Hospital ER. She tells them that they tell her, we're either going to have to admit you to McLean's, or you're going to have to go to like a half-day program at Women and Infants Hospital in Rhode Island. She chooses to go to this half-day program at Women and Infants. So on December 20th, she admits herself to the Women and Children's place in Rhode Island. Even though she has scored so high on this scale, that's scoring her as extremely depressed on the scale, and that she has bipolar, Rhode Island says she doesn't have postpartum. So she's following this to Dr. Diaz there. He says she's fine. Symptoms are due to over-medication. He takes her off of everything, which a lot of these medications you can't just come off of. You have to wean off of this shit. Okay. Said that their program really wasn't a good fit for her. December 29th, she says she can't take it anymore. She goes to McLean's and she checks herself into McLean's on the 30th. It's New Year's Eve weekend. She doesn't see anybody till the 3rd of January. So she's in McLean's almost 3 days before she sees anybody. They take her off the Seroquel. They put her on triazidone for sleep. Once she comes off the Seroquel, she's starting to come out of it a little bit. So after 5 days, she wants to go home because she wants to go home for her daughter's birthday. And they discharge her back to this nurse, Gelada. So after leaving McLean's, and she's in her mind, she's like, well, McLean's is the best hospital in the world. And if they're willing to let me go, I can't be that bad, So days after discharge, she's now seeing Dr. Tufts again, who I believe is that woman that was on the stand with the long dark hair that was arguing that she didn't write that shit in her notes. Okay. She is, in her notes, she writes that she has, Lindsay has chronic major depressive disorder. She says that Lindsay's condition is deteriorating. This meeting was 17 minutes long. She has never physically met Lindsay. Everything has been telehealth. January 7th is Cora's birthday. Lindsay is, she's there at the birthday. She's smiling, but she won't talk to anybody. She can't have a conversation. Her family's like, she avoided anybody. She didn't want to talk to anybody. The hallucinations return within 1 week after discharge from McLean's. On January 10th, she's back to Dr. Tufts, who prescribes Valium and says that antidepressants will come in later. On the 16th, debilitating depression, hallucinations. These hallucinations are telling her she should harm the kids, she should kill herself. She is now prescribed amitriptyline. 2023. She Googles what is a psychopath, because now she feels she must be a psychopath, because why is she feeling this way? 123, another appointment with Dr. Tufts saying that she was anxious and she has more anxiety in the mornings than she does in the evenings, but it's bad. Dr. Tufts writes that Lindsay is flat. She has anxiety, but she has no, she's numb. She won't engage. She's just got no affect going on. Her sleep is poor. The medication efficacy is poor. She increases the amitriptyline, and Lindsay is not sleeping that night either. On the 24th, she is having severe suicidal thoughts, hallucinations to harm her kids. The husband goes out. She hears a man's voice repeatedly telling her, this is your last chance. He's just left the house. You kill the kids, or you're never going to have the chance. Now's the time. Now's the time. She acts on it, kills the family. That's where we stand. Now she's on the stand. Where is she? Is she psychotic? Is she faking? Nobody seems to know.
Well, that's
Everybody
who
has an
said
opinion.
on the 24th. That's what she was saying. Her defense.
This
attorney.
is what she said.
That's
This is
what
she
they
said.
filed for a suit.
Right, but this is what Lindsay is saying she heard.
Right, but she never said it then.
I don't.
She's saying it now after.
Right. Again, I don't know. All right. But when you read psychosis and depression, that's what she's going through. She's not sleeping. She hadn't slept for days. They're trying to bring in the husband. He has nothing to do with this. She killed her kids. You're not going to convince me she didn't do it.
Oh, no, she 100%.
But you have all these online sleuths saying...
Oh, I can't.
The husband did it. Yeah. Maybe he was a terrible husband. Maybe he was cheating. I don't know. I don't know what this guy was all about.
But he called and said, listen, she's getting worse. It's not like worse. He was like, oh, you're staying home and I'm not getting you help. He was calling and saying, hi, she's worse. Right. I need help.
What is my opinion? The system failed her. The mental health system in this country sucks with a capital S, 14 exclamations after. It sucks.
Yes.
These people, you can't see their illness. You can't really fix it. So they're pushed down the system. We have no place to pull people who are in full psychosis. We want to get them out as fast as they can. We over-medicate. We wrongly medicate. She easily could have been a victim of all that. She easily could be faking it. I don't know. Right. But I don't want to say she's faking it because then that just feeds into all these people who are crazy are faking it. So I don't know what was going on in her head.
I don't.
And I know she has to live with she killed 3 beautiful babies. And all the people around her are living with, what could I have done to stop this? What did I miss? Her mother, how did my daughter do this? What could I have done? What could I have done more? The mother-in-law, I tried to help her. It didn't work. Should I have done this? Should I have done that? The husband, like everybody's second guessing. We can sit back after the fact, look at this and say, yeah, well, I mean, clearly she was this or she's like, I don't know. But it's a horrible story. And postpartum depression is not talked about. All you see online is, I have 3 children and I had a bento box lunch for all of them. And I was painting the kitchen 3 days after birth. Women are awful to women.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about it. Who are you going to go to who's going to be real with you to be like, oh, I fucking hated having kids. Mm-hmm. It was awful for me. When I think back to the times when my kids were 3 to 4 months, I was so dark, especially with my firstborn. I'm gone from being so independent, living my life, to I can't take a shit without that kid in the bathroom with me. It threw me I was bad. And my kids were winter babies, so I couldn't even go outside. It was dark days. I never want to go back. I never thought of killing them.
No.
I thought of maybe leaving, but I never thought of killing them. So I can't imagine how dark it got for these women. I'm glad I wasn't there, but we ignore it. And women don't feel they have a place. I remember talking to somebody, she's like, oh, the moment I had the child in my hands, oh, I was in love. I'm like, really? It took me 4 months to look at that kid and think I love him to death. 4 months before I could bond with that baby, because all he did was cry and yell at me. I didn't like him. I don't like him at all. I love him to death now and I die for him now, but I don't think I'm unusual. I don't think I'm the only woman out there who couldn't bond with her child right away. And I think we put a lot of pressure on new moms to be super moms. And it's hard. It's really hard. And I think more women should talk about the struggles they had.
I think through their whole motherhood, you hear about, oh, my child does this, and my child does that. And I'm like, really? I want to smack my kid. Like,
right.
My
kid's an idiot.
Right. My kids? What? Your kid's doing what? Like, it makes you feel stupid until you find you have people that are like, I'm going to murder my child. I'm like, yes,
5 years old. My kid just applied to Harvard and he's going to be going in and he's, just painted the next Mona Lisa. I'm like, really? Yeah. My kid can barely drool.
I read I think maybe my friend Susan, texted 4 of us something one time, years ago, when the kids were probably in middle school. We were really ugh.
Yeah.
I don't really
middle school kids are awful.
They're awful. And she was like, find your people that you can be like, hey, my son's an asshole too.
Yeah.
Yes. You just need
you need real.
No one's kids are perfect. Yeah. No one's kids are great. And you don't love, yes, you love your kids all the time, but you're not wow, I'm just Matt, so in love with you.
I don't think my kid is going to cure cancer anytime soon.
And sometimes they make you absolutely insane.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, I feel awful because everybody else just really loves their kid and their kid never gives them any trouble or sass or whatever, you know, and you're like,
No, one of the women at work asked me, like, do you ever yell at your kids? I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, I've wanted to choke them out.
My first language.
Yeah, I've wanted to choke them out.
My first language, yell. My second language,
when
English.
you're potty training and your kids shit on the floor for the 5th time, after you just sat them on the potty for 45 minutes, I completely decompensated and screamed at them. Mm-hmm. Yes, I have, yes. Were I proud of those moments? No.
No,
yes,
you feel like a terrible person, but at least you're like,
yes.
when you feel like it's just you doing it,
you
you're like,
think there's
wow,
something wrong
I
with
don't
you.
know really like where it went wrong. And then someone's like, oh, I just had that with my kid. And you're like, oh, so other people do this? Like, it's
you need to know you're not alone.
It.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to talk about the bad. They only want to talk about how wonderful they. And let me tell you, all kids are assholes. We've all had that. Those nights when you're up and you're burping that kid and they won't burp and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I want to go back to sleep. You have one. Just burp it so I can go to bed. Like, and you're screaming at them because and the kid has no idea what you're talking about. And you wonder why they're crying. Because you're a nervous wreck.
Right, because your heart rate is like this.
Because nobody gives you instructions when you get pregnant. Until like, okay, this is
the best instruction I ever had. We went to a prenatal class, like so he could learn about like birth and whatever.
I didn't know about it.
Did you know that they were going to stick? You didn't know about all of it. And so the lady was like, the only thing I took away, because I was a nurse already. Yeah. The thing I took away, she said, when your baby is crying, it won't stop crying, and you're going to lose it. Put that baby in their crib.
That's what I did.
That is the safest place. They are safe. Nothing will hurt them.
Walk away.
Walk out of the house. Make sure your door is unlocked and walk out of the house. Nothing will happen to that baby in that crib.
Right.
You need a minute of silence. Give yourself however long it takes to
But how many people acknowledge that you're going to have that moment?
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like that, I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. They're
remember
completely safe in their crib. So what if they're screaming? They're
bringing
safe.
Him in, waking Brian up and be like, take him out of my hands because I'm going to smother him with the pillow. And walking away just to get away because that sound. Mm-hmm. Oh, that sound.
She goes, just make sure that door's unlocked because you can't lock them in the house. You know, she goes, make sure the door's unlocked.
But walk out.
Leave the house.
And
you cannot hear them outside.
Yep.
Take 5 minutes. They're safe. Yep. There's nothing wrong with them. They're fine. And I was like,
you can see why
that's a good idea.
Teenage moms who don't have the coping mechanisms can hurt the babies because those infants can really set you off when they're crying and they can't tell you why they're crying and you've gone through everything. So that is our postpartum depression series episode, whatever you want to call it. We could go on and on and on. Like I said, the only time we got hate mail was over the Karen Reed trial, and it literally had nothing to do with what we were talking about. Like we were talking about the medical part of it, and the guy's like, "You don't know anything about the case." I'm like, "We're not talking about the case. Yeah. We're actually talking about hypothermia." Like you're dope.
Right. And we do know about that.
And we
looked it up.
Because we're nurses. I Googled it.
I'm
real good with the Google. So look for the new moms out there. You're not alone. When you're up there at 2 a.m. and you're burping that baby, we've all been there and you're not alone. And when you have weird thoughts, you're not alone. If you have thoughts of harming, go get help. And we will talk to you in a couple of weeks. Bye.